All right, we are live. We are live. Sorry for those that were on the last stream. I had to create a new one. We were having some technical difficulties. So before we do introductions and let you guys know who my esteemed guest is today, we'll let you guys go ahead and get in here. So we have 0 people watching right now, T. But I'm sure people are going to start to come in here shortly.
Okay.
Let's see. Maybe I can put a thingy-mabob here. Some kind of avatar. See, I don't have the pro version of this, so I can only do but so much. We got 2 people in the building. So we're gonna let a few more people. We'll give people another minute or 2 to go ahead and get in this stream. Thank you so much for coming along. We will be answering questions here tonight as well, but I will also be asking my esteemed guest some questions as well. So if you guys can go ahead and start asking your questions in the chat. We'll get to those here in a few minutes after we do introductions. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We will get to them. Let's see what this does. All right, apparently just added some kind of banner across the screen. All right, guys. So yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We've got 2 people in the building right now. So I guess I can go ahead and get the housekeeping items out of the way first. So we're still going to have another chat in a few weeks. I did have someone lined up here to speak with us tonight, but she had to reschedule. She had what's called database lock. And so if you guys don't know what that is, go look at my video on that. I just released it, I think, within the past couple of weeks. So that's a good opportunity to learn about that. So we still have resume review program, interview prep, career consultation. So if you're interested in any of those programs, you can go ahead and email me at eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com. For those of you who have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest here in about 15 seconds or so. Actually, T, I'm gonna let you do a little bit of the introduction, but I'm gonna give you a nice little layup here.
Okay.
All right. So far we got 2 people in the chat. Go ahead and ask any questions you may have. Sorry for the delay, guys. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, but we're here now. So I've got a very, very special guest with us tonight, a personal friend of mine, but also very experienced in the industry. So T, if you want to go ahead and give a little intro about yourself, I think people would really get a lot of value if you say how you kind of leveled up in this industry. And you feel free to say company names, feel free not to say company names. It's up to you. So the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm T. Like my brother from ECRG just stated, we have been friends since college. That's where we first met. And oddly enough, I don't think either one of us were looking for the clinical research industry while we were in college. It kind of just popped up on us as we got to our senior year. We kind of learned about it, and that's kind of what happened to me. I had friends who were in the industry, and I was like, what is your job function? They kind of explained it to me. I thought it was interesting, but never really knew about it. And I went to NC State for college, and we didn't have a clinical research program at our university. So just talking to people and learning about it that way is kind of how I got into the realm. But a lot of people always ask, how did I get into the job? And I majored in biochemistry in college. I was on the med school track initially. But like a lot of people, lost that passion and fight for that. And then decided to just get a standard job. And I was working actually for the sponsor that I currently work for now in the research lab. So I was doing scientific research, doing routine testing throughout the facility and on some of the products that the sponsor was creating. Um, I didn't like it that much, to be honest with you. I did it for about a year and a half, didn't see any growth, um, and I didn't want to go into management. So I had to pivot. And one of my other friends from college was a clinical research associate at the time. The lifestyle looked so glamorous, got to travel, create your own schedule. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. And so what I actually did was I left my role at the sponsor, went to a CRO because I needed to get some research experience. And I was in the manufacturing division at the sponsor. So I needed to pivot and I didn't want to take that chance of waiting and trying to figure that out at my current job. And so I left for a CRO and I became a clinical trial assistant. I did that for about a year and a half. I tried to get into programs. They had what you call like a bridge program, transferring from a CTA to a CRA. Applied for 2 rounds of that. And finally, um, I actually got the job I am in now just by emailing everybody on LinkedIn. Literally, I would email senior CRAs, um, managers, recruiters, and found out about another program at the sponsor that I used to work at, and luckily got in. And probably using the connects that I had previously didn't hurt getting into that job function. And so now I've been in the clinical research role for about 2.5 years. Um, in various indications. I started off in oncology, and now I'm doing more pediatric vaccines, women's health with endometriosis, and contraceptive studies. And I did a little bit of cardiology as well. So that's a little bit of my background.
Wow, you've been killing it. I didn't know you had all those indications just in the past 2.5 years. But that's very interesting. So I want to go back a little bit. And for those that have been a fan of the channel for a while, T has actually come on for an interview. I think we did that interview probably like
It's been about 2 years.
at least 20, it might have been 2019, I think, because I was still living at the other place. So it must have been 2019 or 2018. Because I think you were still living in the triangle as well.
Correct.
Um, okay, so let's go back a little bit. What was it like working as a CTA? Because that's one of the most common jobs in the industry, especially for people to get their start. So what was that like?
I think the CTA position gets a bad rap because it's not the glamorous CRA job, but actually I think it's very needed for you to get like the bare bones of what clinical research is. And that's reviewing ICFs, which is like one of the most important documents, the 1572. And essentially in that role, I was kind of the liaison and startup and close out, getting those necessary startup documents completed, working with the sites, and that kind of helps you with your communication, which is a vital part of any job function in the clinical research realm. And so seeing those documents, actually reviewing ICFs, learning the language, the lingo, I think was probably the biggest help in part in building that foundation for my career in clinical research. But I would say if you are into that position, what I did was shadow CRAs, ask your manager, can you work with any of the in-house CRAs? Can you shadow with clinical research associates on their site visits and just put yourself out there because you can easily sit there for 2 to 3 years in the same position and work up to be a senior clinical trial assistant. But I just had more ambition. And I went there for a purpose. My only purpose was to go there to get my foot in the door and to build off of that because I knew I wanted to be a clinical research associate. But I will say I did enjoy the CTA role while I was in it, um, just because it was a new life, and it kind of gave me that initial, I guess, way into the clinical research field.
Right. Okay. So anybody that has questions about CTA, CRA, anything, drop your questions in the chat. Um, and we'll definitely answer them and give our take on it. So we had 2 people in live right now. Um, we had 3. I don't know where that person went, but hopefully they'll be back. So
Yeah.
yeah, guys, if you got any questions, drop them in the chat.
And another thing too that you have to kind of watch out for when you're applying for these positions is to actually read the job function, because a lot of them have the same titles, but they don't do the same thing. And you want to have that CTA position. If your goal is to become a CRA, is to have something that encompasses that. So like more towards you doing in-house CRA work, um, versus just documents and sending emails and kind of just standard busy work. You want to be able to build off of what you're doing each day.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you this. If someone is a CTA but doesn't want to be a CRA, what other options do they have?
You can definitely go into startup. A lot of people become startup specialists if they are really, really good at their job and they're proficient in getting site startup. Right now, every company is metric driven. And so they want to see how fast can we get from validation, which is initially finding the sites and seeing if they're qualified to participate in the study. If they become selected, how fast can we get from that point to they're actually good to start initiating and conducting clinical trials. And if you're very proficient in getting those documents in, working with sites, having great communication, you will be elite in that field, and you essentially will become a specialist. And that's one of the roles that you can do if you don't want to travel. There are like in-house CRAs, which essentially do everything but go to the site and monitor and inspect drug and that thing. That's pretty much the only thing you can't do as a in-house CRA. You can also go into regulatory too, which works more with the IRB and getting those documents approved.
Wait, so you said in-house CRA, study, site study startup, and what else? Or is those
A like a regulatory coordinator, which
regulatory?
is more geared towards like the IRB approval process.
Okay. So do you need to have experience first to be a regulatory coordinator as a CTA, or is that something you can do straight up in your experience?
Um, You can probably do it straight up, just depending on what your background is. Just being organized, and just being proficient. And I feel like if you can stress that in like the interview, I feel like you can get away with doing it. I don't think you need CTA experience prior to that. It's essentially the same thing, but you just have different goals, and you're working with the IRB versus working more with the sites directly.
Right.
You can
Okay.
always go into management too. If that's your goal, if you want to manage people, you can become a CTA line manager too.
Mhm.
That's something to work towards once you get past the senior CTA level. I've seen people do that.
Okay. Yeah, I like CTA and some of the other like regulatory coordinator and site study startup. That's something I really haven't talked a lot about, but those are definitely opportunities there as well.
Hmm.
It's just like CTA is probably the most common out there, right?
Right. Yeah. Initially, CTA is probably the most common, and I've seen some people go more into the financial part of it too, and working with like contracts and budgets with site. But not a lot of people do that. Most of the people want to become a CRA um, or regulatory, in my opinion.
Okay. T, do you see that question that popped up, or no? You can't see that on your view.
What's my dream research job?
Yeah, you see that? I'm gonna show it to the live.
Yes, I
Um,
can see it.
yeah. So clinical research Maven asked T, "What's your dream research job?" So, thank you, clinical research Maven, for the question. And yeah, you came in on my last live, so shout out to you. Go ahead, T. What do you have to say to that?
It's actually a good question because my line manager asked me this question last week on my one-on-one. He's like, Terrence, what do you want to do in the next couple years? And honestly, right now, I love the CRA role. I love being able to essentially create my own schedule outside of like my team meetings with whatever protocols I'm working on, and being able to travel. And so my day is not the same every single day, which is what I hated when I was working in the lab. I just came in and clocked in. It was an easy job, but it wasn't rewarding to me. And so I like the feeling of leaving the house, getting dressed up and like feeling like I'm somebody and making a difference in the world. And it sounds like so like cliche and stuff, but it actually makes you like want to do your job, and you love it in a sense. And so for right now, my goal, I am a level 2 CRA. And so I still want to become that senior CRA right now, and then maybe build off of that. I'm not sure if I want to become a clinical research manager where I'm managing a study myself yet. Because I don't know, a lot of those managers seem so burnt out,
Mhm.
and they're always stressed out as well because they have so many people from the top hitting them with these metrics and timelines. And so right now, I just love the CRA role, and I would just do that until I'm burnt out, or I potentially have a family one day and need to stay at home versus traveling all over the place.
Okay, I think one of the good things you brought up during that was flexibility and I guess the freedom. Can you expound a little bit more about what do you mean by flexibility when you say the CRA job is flexible and creating your own schedule? So what do you mean?
Yeah, so for my studies, they have what we call a site management plan, and within that plan, you have um, guidelines on when you need to go to the site. And so some site visits request, say if I'm just in initial, like the site just started up, they screened their first patient. You need to go there within 2 weeks of that patient being screened. And then you have subsequent visits after that. And usually they're around like 8 week intervals. And so within that 8 week intervals, you can work with the site to create that on-site visit anytime pretty much. And so you have that flexibility to say, I want to travel on this Tuesday. And then you can work within that for all your studies. And so if you want to load up 2 weeks of you just being on site and traveling nonstop, you can. If you want to spread out those visits within a month, you can. And it gives you that flexibility. You don't have to feel like you're traveling all the time. You can work as much as you want in a sense. Um, and you're just in control of that site visits. Like my manager doesn't really know. He gives me that flexibility that I'm in control of going on site and completing my visits. And they just know that everything that needs to be done is being done by that monitoring plan or within that plan itself.
Right. Okay, that's very interesting. Now let's talk about flexibility like within the day. Like,
Okay.
do you have to sit at your desk all day and look at emails? Like what's your flexibility like? Like what are you allowed to do throughout your day? And I think this you kind of compared and contrast this probably without realizing it to the project managers or like any of the people in the managerial level. Like they don't have that same level of flexibility as a CRA within a day. So
Right.
what do you have to say to that?
A lot of the managers, they have meetings like all day, and they're on calls all day because they're working with so many different people that they have to communicate in that way. As a CRA, we typically have weekly or monthly meetings depending on what study you're working on. And so my day, like for today, for instance, I had two calls which I knew I had to complete. And one was just a regular monthly call with updates for my study, and the other one was working with the site, and we just were doing a recruiting call to see what we can help do to help the site screen and find patients. And so outside of that, I'm really working on just objectives with my site, reviewing and making sure that they are answering queries within the right time, scheduling visits, doing just daily general activities, like expense reports and completing my visit reports throughout the week. But there's no like set timelines on when I need to do that throughout the day. So you have flexibility. You can wake up at 6 a.m. and work for a couple hours, and then go to the gym, do what you want to do, go get coffee with a friend, come back, take a meeting, and then you have flexibility at lunch. You want to meet someone, you can do that. It's all in like what you think you can handle. And some people are better at time management than others. But if you're really good and you can get your work done, you can pretty much do whatever you want. It's kind of bad to say, but you have that flexibility where if you want to do something throughout the day, as long as you get your work done, you can kind of do it.
Right. And some days are better for that than others.
Right. I mean, some days I've worked until like 10 p.m. at night too, just because I had like a lot of things due like at a certain time. Like I had 3 to 4 visits back to back, and then my monitor and visit reports got caught up, and so I need to make sure I do those by the deadline, and so I might have to do extra work one day of the week. Um, but yeah, there's tons of flexibility. It's all in how you manage it, for sure.
So are there days where you do like very little work?
Yeah, there are some days where, like last week, I didn't have any visits throughout the whole week, and so I essentially did my timesheet. I did expense reports, and just try to work through emails, organize those, and make sure I'm caught up on everything. And yeah, it's a slow week. I didn't do too much.
Okay. Guys, drop your questions in the chat. That was a good question, clinical research maven. And we kind of veered off onto some other things because I thought what T was talking about was pretty interesting. So I wanted to get his take on a couple things there. But if you guys are listening, drop your questions in the chat. Okay. So we talked about how much work you do. And I guess your studies have been pretty consistent throughout the pandemic. But when the pandemic first hit, what was kind of going through your mind? Because obviously we knew travel was going to get shut down, and eventually it did. What was kind of going through your mind when the pandemic first hit as a CRA?
When it first hit, I didn't really know how it would affect my studies. I do work on an actual COVID trial for my sponsor, and so I got extremely busy when that happened because it was all guns blazing. Every sponsor was racing to get their drug out first. And so that was like the fastest startup initiation phase I've seen. Um, and so I got selected to be a part of that study, and it seemed like nothing slowed down. It seemed like everything was just consistent throughout the pandemic, for sure. The one thing that hit me hard was the travel bans and not being able to go on sites, because some of my sites were small and they weren't up to date on doing everything electronically. They didn't have that database set up. They didn't have any of the vendors to support remote monitoring. And so I'm working through the kinks of performing those visits remotely was a challenge for a lot of my sites, and for me as well. And so that was probably the biggest hurdle that I faced throughout the pandemic, just those changes with the remote monitoring aspect. I've gotten better with it now. And the sponsor as a whole, we kind of take on the risk-based monitoring now, which I think a lot of people have done too, just to alleviate some of that work with remote monitoring. But yeah, everything else, I feel like nothing really changed. I don't know if that was the same for you and what you've seen, but it was full guns blazing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when the pandemic first hit, I knew we weren't going to be traveling at some point. And then the visits just started dropping like flies. I think within a matter of a couple of days, all the visits were off my calendar. And then we had to come out with new processes and protocols for how to remote, because we were in the closeout phase. So we had to come out with a way to remotely close out these sites.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so that's basically what we did. All of 2020 was closed down my study.
Did
Now,
you
of
feel
course,
like you had a lot more work, like busy work? That's kind of how I felt. Like I felt there was a lot more tracking.
so okay, let's pause on the remote monitoring talk. I'm gonna come back to you on that in a second.
Okay.
Brooklyn Queen has asked a question. Just because I know we're going to get into a longer discussion on remote monitoring here. Um, but Brooklyn Queen has asked, I'm not sure if you answered, but what are your thoughts about contract work? So, Terrence, um, give us your take on contract work. I think just any contract work, CTA, CRA, just in general, whatever.
Um, I think contract work is good initially if you're just trying to get in the door. I feel like you should take the first thing that pops up, even if it's working directly for someone versus being a contractor. Of course, it is not as stable as a full-time position, but most likely with all of the demands, there's really a big demand for my position as a CRA, and I'm sure as a CTA, there's that same demand. I don't see there's being like an issue or downfall with being a contractor versus working directly for a sponsor or a CRO. Um, and most of the contractors make a little bit more money too versus regular positions because you do have uh, less security in a sense. So they like to compensate you for that. But I do ideally long term would love to work directly for a sponsor. I feel like that's the ultimate goal. And so when I speak to other people that work for CROs and I work directly for a sponsor and we kind of compare the benefits and stuff, I feel like full-time sponsor is a lot better than contract work. But the one thing that I do like about contracts is that you have that flexibility and you can take on contracts whenever you want to. So if you want to do a part-time contract for a year or even less than that, you can do so and then kind of bounce around and get into different indications quicker. Um, and so that's kind of what I feel about it. I don't know if ECRG, if you want to add some more to that. Um,
Yeah. All right. So we have 5 people in the chat right now. So put your questions in the chat. Clinical Research Maven, I see your other question too. We're gonna get with you in a second. So we've had 6. Now we're down to 5. So let's see if we can get this thing up. Anyway, yeah, guys, if you're in the chat, go ahead and like the video and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. But go ahead and like it. That's going to help us in the algorithm, help more people see us. See, we're spreading the good word here. Yeah, contract work. Guys, I got my start on a contract, and I've told this story many times on the channel. I was making like $12 an hour. It was a 3-month contract, and those contracts go by fast. But that's how I got my start in the industry. And of course, you're going in with the idea of getting experience, putting it on your resume, and then hopefully taking that and parlaying it into either a longer contract or a full-time position. So, I like contract work for getting your start because you kind of gotta get the experience however you can, and that definitely helps out a lot when looking for a job after the fact. It was like night and day applying with no experience versus applying with clinical research experience. You get a lot more callbacks when you have clinical research experience. So, as far as getting in the industry, contracts are great if that's what you got to do. I've never been a contract CRA before, so I can't really speak to it like that. But I do know that people can work multiple at one time, which is good for making money. And you don't get the benefits, but if you can imagine a CRA, I don't know how much they make. How much have you seen the contracts for, T?
I've
For
seen some for up to like $50 an hour.
50 an hour?
Hmm.
I feel like I've
But
seen more than that, higher than that.
really,
Well, yeah, I think so.
yeah, for like seniors, I guess if you have
Yes.
a lot of experience, yeah, you can pretty much make your own price at that point.
Maybe I've seen 70, I don't know, but 50 an hour is still pretty good. Uh, yeah, I think I've definitely seen more than 50 an hour. But anyway, I mean, as a contractor, you're getting paid door to door. So as soon as you leave your house to when you get back, you're getting paid hourly. So even if it's 50, that's still a lot of money at the end of the trip. I guess the downside is like right now I'm in a lull in my studies, so I'm not really doing a lot of work. There's days I send like 2 emails right now, and that's it. Um, and if you're a contractor, you're not going to be getting paid that whole day or the whole week if that's all you're doing. So there's kind of, ups and downs with it too. But of course, it's great. And especially it's great if you can add it on to a full-time job too, because people do work part-time contracts and or full-time contracts as well. So that's also great. So we got 6 people in the chat. Guys, drop your questions in the chat below. Don't forget to like the video. Yeah. So
I
clinical
think we
research.
have a new question.
Yeah. Clinical research Maven has asked, what's a good productivity tool for monitoring sites? T, what kind of tools do you use when you're on the road and traveling and stuff?
So me working for a sponsor, we have a lot of things that are streamlined and how they want us to monitor. And so we have trackers for each protocol, and essentially in that tracker, you're pretty much tracking everything from training to how many subjects are screened. You're tracking their subject visits and the calculation of when they need to be within that window. And so I think having some type of Excel sheet just to track everything and have it all in one place is good. So you're not scrambling, trying to find something, because you always want to think about what if the FDA comes at this day? Are you ready to show everything? And you know where everything is at that time and moment, and you can confidently say that you're on top of things and you know what's going on at the site. And so having a Excel sheet to track IRB approvals and just everything that encompasses what you do as a monitor in one place, that helps me a lot. A lot of people use Excel. A lot of people use OneNote now too, because you can make checklists within OneNote as well. And so my company likes to use all of the Microsoft tools. And so we use Microsoft Teams, and you can share files that way and make calendar invites. I think having everything all in one program helps a lot too. But definitely a basic tracker within Excel is a must, just to keep everything neat and clean. And then when you're having meetings with your line managers, you can easily share that with them, and they can kind of see what you're doing, and you can provide that information quickly.
Okay. So yeah, everyone uses Excel trackers. That's pretty much standard across the industry, I would say. And then I don't know if did you touch on EDC Systems, CTMS, Trial, Master File? What kind of programs you're using for that? And we got 8 people in the chat right now, so we really cooking. Let's go ahead, T.
For EDC, I use Inform. I think that's pretty much the industry standard too.
For
Inform is
EDC?
yeah, it's very popular.
Over metadata rave?
Yeah, for me, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah, Inform, which I like it. I think it's a very simple system to learn. I feel like if you can do anything in Excel, you can do anything in Inform. It's pretty straightforward. And there's tons of tools within the program to show you how to navigate with all the guides available. For regulatory documentation, we use VivaVault.
Okay.
Which I like. VivaVault has they expanded their possibilities too. So VivaVault has a program now where the site can essentially have an e-regulatory binder within VivaVault too,
Mm-hmm.
which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the sites like that. There's a lot of like initial growing pains with the site, just figuring out how to work it. But once you figure that, it is such a clean process when you're going on site and monitoring, because you can do a lot of that stuff remotely now.
Isn't it free? Isn't it free for sites?
It is, yeah. It's one of the great things about it.
We just added it ourselves. So
yeah, and that way you can create tasks within there. Say you need a protocol signature page signed. You just had a new protocol amendment come out, and that requires the signature from the principal investigator. You can create a task within that program, which essentially gives them a notification that that document needs to be signed and re-uploaded. And so I like that a lot of the things have become more streamlined. And yeah, I'm trying to think, what other systems do I use on a daily basis?
Did you say your trial master file? Oh, you said Viva?
Yeah, VivoBall for that, and then our
So
clinical trial management system we use Spectrum. I'm not sure if you've heard of that program.
no, we use BioClinica, but
Okay,
okay, let's go back to this Viva Vault thing. So you said you guys have a TMF in Viva Vault as well as the site can use it as their regulatory binder.
that's correct. Yes.
So is it like does one side communicate to the other side? Like does it
Uh,
automatically go into the like if they upload something to the eReg side, does it automatically go to the TMF side or is it just one folder?
it automatically transfers. Of course, with your approval, you will have to. They can't just upload any document. It's going to file directly into the binders. You yourself will have to guide that and essentially create a workflow so that process will be completed. But they do talk in a sense. You just kind of have to help them move along.
Okay, thank you for that because I think that's probably the future, and I think the future is going to be less friction in that process. It's probably going to be like they upload a CV or something, and the AI will read the document and determine where it will go in the TMF.
Correct. And
So
also,
no, so there will be very minimal review.
correct. Yes. And
Um,
also, my sponsor is part of what you call the shared investigator platform.
mhm.
A lot of sponsors have adopted and um, joined this platform, and that essentially is going to long term create less work for sites, especially in startups. So if say you requested a CV from site staff, they upload it into the system for my sponsor, the other sponsors will have access to that too. So when they're starting up, the site doesn't have to do extra work. They don't have to re-upload that for every single study and protocol that they're on. They can just do it one time.
Yep,
And
yep,
so that's gonna be a really good game changer moving forward, just to help with the long times of the startup and initiating sites. And for us, everything's going to be completed within that platform. You don't have to do anything else for the site. So they can complete their training via that platform. They can upload documents via that platform. They will receive notifications, like study notifications on like updates with enrollment and anything else, all within one platform. And I think that helps the site out a ton, just having everything all in one place.
right. Okay. And you know what's crazy? I'm not even scared about that because there's still so much work to do as a CRA rather than upload documents. That's not even really our main job anyway.
Right.
Um, okay, cool. So thanks for going into that. Real quick though, all right, we got two more questions, but real quick though, what kind of apps and tools do you use to manage travel and everything else not directly clinical research related on the road?
Mm.
Like I'm talking your Hilton app. Like what stuff are you using?
So I'm definitely Team Hilton. So I have those apps for sure. The Hilton app. I love flying Delta, so I have that app, of course, and Hertz. Those are like my trifecta in terms of who I use. Um, we have a system in place where we can only um, book our flights and hotels via all one system, and so it kind of helps us keep everything organized. We don't book anything on our own. We have to go through our own portal, and so that, in a sense, helps me track everything. We
Right.
do have some apps that help with travel. They send notifications. It's kind of just a industry, well, an in-house travel app, but I don't really use that as much. I don't see it as being beneficial because I can track everything within my own hotels and airline apps myself.
Okay. Good deal. I use those same trifecta as well. Hilton, Delta, Hertz.
Yep.
Um, and see you have a car. Can you talk about your car
Yeah,
real
so
quick?
I do have a car, which is uncommon that I'm hearing from a lot of CROs, of course, and sponsors, because my sponsor, they really advocate for you not traveling everywhere around the world. Like if you live on the East Coast, they don't want you traveling all over to the Midwest and West Coast. They want you to kind of stay within your region. They see that as being more beneficial. So everyone is kind of regionally aligned in that sense. And so I have a company car and I love it. I don't have to pay for any insurance. I don't have to pay for any gas. And I actually sold my own personal car because why have that when I can use the company car for my own personal use? So that in a sense saves me a ton of money, especially with the inflated gas prices now. And so
Hmm.
it's becoming way more of an asset and a great benefit for sure. But yeah, if you can definitely find a place that has a company car, I would definitely take it. It's worth more than the extra 10K that you can get from another company, in my opinion. Just that extra perk goes a long way.
Right. Right. And yeah, now you fully bought into the company car. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
all right. Animesh has a question. Let's go ahead and answer that one. So Animesh asks, would you switch away from CRA/CRO field? Let's say you get the chance to land a job at a pharma company, which you met during the site. So I think they're asking, would you go to a pharmaceutical company, or what are your thoughts on that?
Um, so I work for a big pharma company now. So I'm assuming that he's maybe saying something more small, that's more like a startup where you
I
have
don't think that was clear
a
that you
lot
worked.
more.
I didn't know if you wanted to say that or not, so I didn't push you. I don't think that was clear that
Okay.
what kind of company you work for right now.
Yes, I work for a big pharma or sponsor company. And so I think that is the ultimate goal because you have less lines of communication. So I'm working directly with the clinical scientists who develop the protocol, so I can ask them questions. Data management can send me an email directly. I can talk to them via chat. And so I feel like when you work for a CRO, it's kind of hard to get answers for certain questions. It takes a lot more time to get feedback. Or there's a middleman, and you don't always feel included. I feel like when you work directly for a pharma company, your opinion matters. When whatever processes or new apps that the sponsor wants to develop, they're asking the CRAs directly, what helps you in your day to day? What's gonna change the company in your eyes? And I feel like you have a lot more input versus working for a CRO, where I feel like you're kind of just a minion in a sense, like you're the worker bee, and they just want you to meet those metrics. Um, and so if I was working for a CRO, I would definitely switch away eventually. Um, but this is the one point I would wait until I have a couple of years. I would bounce around after like 2 years. My first year, I would bounce to another one before bouncing to the ultimate sponsor or pharma company because that's where you want to end and land. So you want to make as much money as you can before jumping to that pharma company. So you want to go there as a senior CRA. Um, and a lot of pharma companies themselves, they don't like taking on new CRAs that are fresh anyways. They want more experienced people. So definitely, if you can, go to two CROs, bounce around, make that money, get that senior CRA position, and then go to a pharma sponsor company.
Yeah, I could not agree more with that. Um, because sponsors also they can take a little bit longer to promote. Well, they definitely take longer to promote than CROs because CROs promote every year. So its sponsors can take a little bit longer. So yeah, you definitely want to go when you're at the top of the pay bracket, and they pay well too at the sponsor side. So thanks for clarifying that. Now let's ask the flip question: would you go from working for a sponsor to a CRO?
No, I can't. And one of my friends asked me the other day, because I have tons of recruiters that call me, and it's funny when I was a CTA or my first year at the CRA, I would get no calls, but now I get calls like every single day. It seems like
Uh huh.
with
They
different
text now
companies,
too.
yeah, different companies poaching me, but I just don't see the benefit for me personally going back into the CRO field. Um, Essentially, I mean, I have that company car. I have tons of benefits that aren't comparable to what the CRO is offering for me, at least what I've heard. They of course, it'll give me more money. But you just have to think about your work-life balance too.
Mm-hmm.
Reaching out to those CRAs on LinkedIn and seeing how they like the company and stuff, and seeing if they're burnt out and what they think about it before taking that leap. And I just haven't found a place that is better than my current position now. So I can't really say that I.
Uh-oh, you went quiet. You still there, T? Uh-oh, I hope his phone didn't die. T, you
Can
still
you hear
there?
me,
Oh, we can hear you now.
ECRG?
Yeah, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
cut out for a second.
Yeah, you cut out. You back now. Um, did you finish that thought, or you have something else to say? Oh, did you cut out again? All right, we hear him now. You back? You back, T? All right, maybe his phone died. All right, so we'll let him get himself together. Um, yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more, especially with the pharmaceutical to CRO thing. I mean, more money. They've been offering more money for a long time now, but they tend to kind of run you into the ground. Um, like because of the way their business model is set up, they don't get paid unless the CRA is on the road, really. And that means they're going to put you on the road every week for sure, sometimes multiple times a week. So when T was talking about the work-life balance, the balance is has the potential to be way off for a CRO. And I remember filling out those timesheets, and they don't. If you start having to put like you're not working or you're doing a lot of training or things that you're not necessarily supposed to be doing as a CRA, they are definitely. Oh, did he mute himself? They are definitely going to um, question that. T, you're on mute. Are you back? Looks like he's back. T, are you back? Oh, he had to get out and come back. All right, so we'll let him get his self together. Um, guys, drop your questions in the chat. I'm gonna take this time to go ahead and talk to you guys about the resume review program. We have that going on if you're interested. Um, few different options. So just email me eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com if you're interested. T's coming back now. Let me add him
Can
to
you
the
hear me
stream.
now?
Yep, you're back.
Okay. Yeah, someone gave me a call and it kicked me out of the StreamYard for some reason.
Ah, all right. T, how much longer you have? We've been on stream 48 minutes. I definitely want to talk remote monitoring with you, and we have a couple more questions, so we can cut it at in about 12, 15 minutes. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right. Um, yeah, so when you were gone, I was just basically piggybacking on what you said about working for a CRO versus sponsor. And the work-life balance, I think, is key because even though they pay more money, um, just them are notorious for running you into the ground every week in
Correct.
and week out. And I don't want that. Even if it's more money, that's not really worth it to me. Um, so, I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel stressed? Like, how do you feel week in and week out being a CRA?
No, I don't feel stressed at all. I don't have I have a full workload, so I have about I want to say 13 sites currently right now with four different studies or protocols. But I feel like I'm able to manage it too, and I feel like just being upfront with your manager sometimes helps a lot too. And I feel like a lot of CRAs, when the manager comes to them, they're like, "Can you handle this?" A lot of them just automatically say yes, because they don't want to look bad that they're not able or capable of doing more work. I feel like that can easily put you in a hole. And so I think being upfront and saying and knowing what you can and cannot manage will help out a lot. But I don't feel stressed. Like I don't when I go into Monday or the beginning of the week, I don't dread my job. I kind of love it, in a sense. I like looking forward to my next visits and traveling and working with um, different site staff. So I can say I don't feel extremely stressed or overworked.
Okay. I want to get into some of your favorite sites. Let's answer some questions first, and then we still got to talk remote monitoring. All right. So let's answer this one. Our dog asks, which position? Let me show it here. Which position offers more freedom slash harder, easier for zero experience in research? CTC financial versus CTC clinical. Um, I don't know what he's asking about the CTC financial part. I guess that's a clinical trial coordinator versus clinical trial coordinator for clinical.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm I'm gonna just take an assumption and saying that the financial part is more contracts and budget, which
okay.
can be harder because I've seen some negotiations take a long time with sites going back and forth. They can't agree on a number. Um, and so that can become, I guess, a little bit frustrating, just the back and forth. Um, but I feel like what would be more rewarding is the CTC clinical because you're going to get more um, of a baseline with more broad information versus just the financial part. And so I'm not sure what the ultimate goal or what position you want to get in the end, but I feel like the clinical would be better. I can't necessarily say it would be easier because honestly, it depends on if you're working for a CRO, it depends on what sponsor you're supporting. Some are going to be a lot busier than others. Some are going to have a lot tighter timelines than others. And so it's kind of the luck of the draw when you're working with a CRO and seeing who you are working with as a sponsor. Um, and so, yeah, can't really answer that question um, directly because I don't know what the end goal is, but I would definitely say clinical would be more rewarding.
Yeah. I would definitely look at what you're trying to do, Al Dog, and um, I would look at what you're trying to do, Al Dog, and see which position will line you up with where you're trying to go the best. Um, and so, if you're obviously trying to go down clinical pathway, you want to look at the more clinical role. Um, so yeah, but also if you're talking about at the site level as a clinical study coordinator, clinical trial coordinator, a lot of them do the financials as well as the clinical stuff. Like they do all of it. So you should get that experience too if you're working at the site level. Um, did you see Al Dog's response? He said, "Thank you. Hopefully, Merck."
I hear Merck is a good sponsor to work for, so
Yeah,
I
I've
hope
heard that.
so for you too, Alex. Though
Next question. Brooklyn Queen asks, "What about other roles like CTM? Would you consider?"
a clinical
Um,
trial manager.
yeah, Brooklyn Queen. Could you drop what your current role is in the chat, or what you're trying to do if you're trying to get into research? What's your current role? Drop that in the chat. All right, go ahead, T. What do you think?
Um, I think I would consider it maybe like 5 years from now. Just maybe if I get bored in the CRA role and I want to do more or just take on more. Um, but I know that comes with like a huge workload. The clinical trial managers are extremely busy. And so for me, I like the flexibility, as I mentioned earlier, in the CRA role, creating my own schedule and not feeling like I'm just on work calls all day. I can leave the house if I want to. Um, that's just my personal opinion. I want to be able to make as much money as I can with doing the least amount of work. And that, that might sound bad, but I feel like that's kind of everyone's ultimate goal. Like they don't want to be overworked. You want to feel like you're compensated for what you get. And I feel like some of the clinical trial managers work extremely too hard
I
because
agree.
I receive emails at 11 o'clock at night from my clinical trial managers. Um, and I don't want to be up working like that every single day. So that's my only, like, I guess, bad thing to say about it. But if you want to climb that corporate ladder, I would go for it.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
going to put you in the best position if you want to become like a director one day for a company. Um, I guess it all depends on like what you want,
yeah,
and you got to
you kind
think
of have
about
to.
the work-life balance and having a family too. There's a lot of things that you would kind of have to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what happens with a lot of people. They're CRAs, and then they get a family or something. They start having kids, and then they go on to be CTM, project managers, CTMs, or
Hmm.
whatever. But also, you're right. You kind of have to do that to climb the ladder, because that is kind of the next role. And then because after you're a project manager and you're managing one or two studies, then you're like a director, and you might be managing, from a top view, like 5, 6, 7, 8 studies.
Right.
So yeah, you kind of have to do that. All right, T, I want to ask you these two questions. Animesh, we're going to get to your questions here, but I want to ask T his takes on these two issues first. So give us a minute. So T, we kind of talked about this here like 20 minutes ago now. Remote monitoring, risk-based monitoring. And this kind of came up during the pandemic because I don't know about you guys, but we were 100% SDV before the pandemic. So that means every data point has to be reviewed by a CRA on site. They have to actually physically look at the source. But obviously, during the pandemic, we couldn't go on site as much as we would have liked, and for everyone's safety. Um, so, what was your take on remote monitoring? I guess before the pandemic and during the pandemic.
Um, I I'm not the biggest fan of remote monitoring. Like as I mentioned earlier, some of my sites are very old and traditional. So it was a lot of growing pains trying to work through that process. I even had one site where I had to literally, they had to show the document via WebEx. Like each page, she literally held up the page and so I can source dot verify it. And it was the most like painful experience, and it took like hours when if I was on site, it would take me maybe 30 minutes to review. And so having that experience kind of just, I don't know, made me not really want to do remote monitoring. But if you have a site that's like proficient, they have a vendor that supports the system and they can easily upload documents and share them with you. Um, Remote monitoring is a breeze. And I think that's the way the industry is moving as well. And so I feel like once you adapt that process, it's going to make a lot of things easier. And in terms of risk-based monitoring, which essentially is you don't have to SDV or source dot review every single subject. You just do maybe all the odd subjects or even numbers of subjects. I like that, except I mean, because you're doing less work. It does
Right.
feel a little weird that you're not reviewing every single data point, just the critical ones that the study team has identified that is critical for the data. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of like that, just doing less work. And yeah, I can't see any like causes. I haven't had any sites that were doing risk-based monitoring that needed to go back to full SDV because you found some issues at the site. So I think a lot of the sites like it too. Um, so yeah, I think it's overall a good change.
Right. So, piggybacking off of that, I like risk based monitoring too, and I think we have the similar opinions on remote. I can't stand it, especially if most sites aren't really built for it. I mean, more are probably built for it now, but definitely in the beginning of the pandemic, they just weren't built for it. Um, but so, I mean, what if the job became 100% remote monitoring? I mean, would you like being a CRA as much?
Um, Honestly, I probably wouldn't. Just staying at home, um, and not being able to travel. I feel like that's one of the biggest perks is traveling and collecting those points that you can use for your personal travel in life, collecting that hotel points, Um, and I think if you take that away, it's really just a CTA job. You're kind
Yeah.
of just, monitoring from home and you're just doing that in-house CRA job. And I don't know if they would change the compensation for that as well, since you're not taking on more traveling. But I don't think you can take away. going on site and verifying the things you need to. I feel like at some point you have to physically go there and expect the drug and like see if the PI is overseeing the site correctly. I feel like you need to go there at least at one point in time in the study to see if like that site is adequate and they are conducting the protocol like they should be. So I don't think it'll ever get to a point where it's completely 100% remote, but maybe like an 80-20 thing I can see happening, which I could get down with, just doing that within the last year and a half of the pandemic. It was an adjustment, but we got through it, and I can't complain too much.
Right. Oh, we got a big all right, Dan Sfair is in the building. Shout out the clinical trials guru. And Dan, I definitely want to get you here on a live stream. I've actually been inspired by you to do this. So yeah, we should definitely link up here pretty soon in the next few weeks if you've got time. So we're gonna jump. Sorry, Adamesh, I gotta show love to Dan. So Dan asked, best cities to eat pre-COVID versus post-COVID. What do you think, T?
Best cities to eat.
I'll go first because I got my list.
So my favorite city is definitely Charleston, South Carolina. One of the
Okay.
best foods that you can get around town. So anywhere on the water, that's my go-to. Just with the view, a nice steak or some shrimp.
Okay, so you got your best one. All right. I got a. Uh-oh. Terrence is gone. Someone must have called him. So I'll go. My first top three, and this is during COVID, post COVID. It's just anytime. Number one is New York City because it's kind of like a cheat code. It's got everything. Number two, San Juan, Puerto Rico. Oh, here's T. He's back. And then number three is New Orleans. Oh, let me add him to the stream. I keep forgetting to do that. T, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. I've never actually been to New Orleans. That's one of the places on my list, but I'm sure it's a great food.
Yeah, so that's my top three anytime. Thanks, Dan, for the question. All right. So let's go back to Animesh and answer his question. Yeah, Dan says New Orleans is great. Yeah, New Orleans got incredible food. And Charleston does too. Charleston would definitely probably be number 4 on my list, actually.
Really? Okay.
It'll be between there and Nashville. Yeah, I'd have to think about that. Which one? I've only been to Charleston once for work, but I'm going to be going there in the next month or so because they're about to enroll a subject, so I can give more on that next time. But yeah, let's go ahead and answer Animesh's question, and then we'll wrap up for the evening because we've been on here an hour already. So, T, for the last question of the night, what's your both personal opinion about getting an MBA degree? Not needed for CRA field, but just curious to know if y'all would pursue one and if it opens doors in this field. What do you think, T?
So I've actually thought about this question because I've had friends that are contemplating getting the MBA degree because a lot of people are saying it's not what it was a decade ago. And a lot of people think it's not needed. Of course, with just outside of the clinical research field, you can start a business by yourself. There's so much documentation and access on YouTube. You can find the tools for whatever specific need you need, like online. Like there's unlimited access to data, and so I don't think you technically need the MBA degree unless you're going into like the corporate world and field where you're competing with other people that have it. You kind of need it to just to stay on their level because they might choose that person with a degree over you and say that was the reason that that's the out. So you don't want to make that be the reason you wasn't chosen for a position. And so if you want to become like a line manager or a director, I feel like you definitely need the MBA degree. But anything under that, I don't feel like you need it, especially for like a senior CRA position. I don't think you need an MBA degree. Some people debate if you even need a master's degree in clinical research, if that even helps you. And we can go into like the ACRP stuff and that certification as well. But a lot of people kind of agree and disagree on what you need. I feel like if you get that initial experience, that's going to outweigh any degree that you have. The industry experience, like you doing your job, is going to outweigh that MBA degree as a whole in the clinical research field. I could be wrong, but that's just kind of what I've seen. Um, I've seen people at my sponsor that's been there for like 15 years, don't have an MBA degree, but they've worked their way up just fine as someone that came in from Harvard with their business degree. So I don't know. What do you think, ECRT?
Yeah, I agree 100%. For definitely project director and up, it might be beneficial. I would definitely, if you're thinking about getting it, I would definitely see if you can get in a position where the company will pay for it and you're not
Correct.
paying
Yeah.
for it out of pocket because they are expensive. But you guys know, I talk about this is a experience driven industry, so you can get really really far um, in this industry without advanced degrees. Just a bachelor's degree, and I even know people that have associate's degrees who are CRAs and make CRA money. So um, it's really an experience based industry, so you can get very very far with just experience.
And it's a who you know industry too. Everybody knows everybody.
Yes.
So the people that you're working with as a CTA now, when you become CRAs, they're going to be the one that's at the company that you may be trying to get to, and they're most likely going to help you with the interview process. And you're just going to have to network. I feel like that's the biggest thing.
Very good point. Yes, because you never know where someone's going to be in 2-3 years. They could be, the person you're applying to go get a job from. So do not burn bridges at all, because this is a small industry and you never know where someone could be. They could be below you, and then 3, 4, 5 years, they could be 2 levels above you just because of the way they, work the system and their network. So do not burn bridges in this industry, because it will come back to bite you one day. It can do it. Okay. Clinical Research Maven says Dan's Fair is in the house. Yes, sir. We're gonna get Dan on for a full live session. We gonna go ham. Um, and then yeah, it's a wild, wild west industry. So T, thank you so much for coming on today. How do you think it went? Do you like it? Do you like this? Okay, T's gone. Um, I guess someone called him. I don't know. He getting a lot of phone calls tonight. Um, yeah, this was great, guys. Thank you for everyone who came in tonight. Um, the last one got a lot of views too. So I think we had 9 was the most people we had. I'm trying to figure out the best time. So if you guys are in the chat, yeah, you guys gotta let me know what times you prefer. I don't know what times everyone likes. Last time I tried 11 a.m. in the morning Eastern time. This time I tried 7 p.m. Eastern time. So we're still trying to figure it out what times people like. Oh, okay, he's back. Yeah, he's doing it on his phone. So every time he gets a call. T, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back. I keep getting kicked out for some reason.
Yeah, maybe next time we try on your computer, we get that situated. But anyway, I was just thanking everybody for coming on, and I really appreciate Dan for showing love, and everyone else, Animesh, who asked questions, Clinical Research Maven, Brooklyn Queen. I see your comments below the videos. Al Dog, shout out to you. So thank you, everybody. We'll do this again. Maybe next week I'll do one, or the week after I'll do one. But for sure, we're gonna have some more guests come on here, and we're gonna ask some more questions and stuff like that in a few weeks for sure. So thanks, T, for coming on and providing your insight. I really appreciate you, brother. And that's it, y'all. Have a good night.
Thanks, Cap. You know.